I'm going to start by removing this ratcheting mechanism here. There are several 10mm bolts all around. Let's remove all those. And there's one. There's another one right up here. And this one you can get to best with a wrench. There will be another one all the way back there. It's really hard to see. I can't even see it. And now with the pedal unbolted, one more thing we have to unbolt is these two bolts right here that hold the release lever in place, and that's the last thing that's holding this ratcheting pedal on. So with a 7mm, go ahead and unbolt both of these. Okay, that's one, and that's two. Now at this point, this assembly can slide up and the cable can go down. I'm going to use a pry bar and just try to pry this out of here. Oh, that's making the cable come out of the floor. What I've done is I've twisted it forward to get to this position. Now I have to disconnect this wiring harness, pop it out. It's secured up top right here. Now my cable is already broken, so there's nothing attached to it on the other end of this. If there was, you would have to probably just cut it. That would be the easiest way, or disconnect it, which I can show you how to do in a minute. Okay, that popped out. Now I want to disconnect this connector, and it's hard to see it. I'll show you in a second once I have this disconnected, but I'm going to use a pick and press down on the lock and remove this connector. So basically the lock is this little tab here, and you can only get to it with a pick or a little screwdriver through a hole in this connector. There's no tab to press on. So from underneath the car, as you can see, my cable is completely broken off. If yours is not broken, but you still need to replace it, you can just cut it and then disconnect it if that's easiest for you, or you just disconnect it from the center cable directly. Either way, you're gonna have to unclip these two retainers here. Obviously mine is trash, so I just hammered it out. Okay, let's go up top now. And here's your cable. Let's get it unattached from the pedal. With this on my workbench, I'm gonna go ahead and cut the cable. It's gonna be easiest to disconnect it from here that way. You can either use some cutters. If those aren't strong or sharp enough, you can just use a cut-off wheel and just cut it right off. But at this point, we can ratchet the pedal all the way down, pull the cable through. So I have the ratcheting pedal in a vise, and what you have to do now, make sure this is fully released and in the utmost position. And I'm going to take a pry bar. If you can do this by hand, go ahead, because my cable is cut. Even if it wasn't cut, pull it up. You can help it along with a pry bar. But what you want to do is ratchet this up all the way. Hold it there. If you have a pin, you can lock it in through this hole. I don't really have anything that'll fit there. I mean, a drill bit could, but that gets kind of sketchy because it could break. Basically, at this point, you take the cable and you slide it out. Slide it out this way. Pull it out. Take your new cable, slide it in through this hole over here, and then slide it behind the ratcheting mechanism here. Make sure that it snaps in. I'm gonna secure it. Oops. I'm gonna secure it into place now. Make sure you put it through that hook that goes there, and you want to make the cable follow this groove here. The groove is there so that the cable can rest inside of it. with the ratcheting mechanism pried up all the way, take the cable and slide it into its hole. Make sure it goes all the way through so that it's locked in. Oops. Perfect, just like that. You can see that it has gone through and the cable is right in the middle. That's what you want it to look like. Now I'm going to release my pry bar, let this go down slowly, and now pull your cable tight. That way there's no slack up here. And again, double check it to make sure it's routed properly. And it is, so let's go back to the truck. Let's go back to the truck. Back at the truck, go ahead and put the cable through the hole in the floor. Make sure that wiring's out of the way. Slide it down. At this point, I'm going to reconnect this connector for the parking brake light. This is what controls the light on the dash, so if you forget to plug this in, it's going to think that your parking brake is always applied. Slide it in even more, and I'm going to lock in the connector. It had a retainer up at the top here. Lock that in. Press the cable through the floor. To reinstall this cable, if you can't pull it and push it through the floor, you're going to have to take off the fender well. There's an 8mm bolt at the top. If you have one of these mud flaps, remove that too. It'll just be easier. Remove this 5.5mm bolt that holds the fender to the fender well liner. And then right down here, there will be some push clips. Pop those off. Actually, there's just one. Now you can pull the fender liner off, or at least out of your way. And here at the top, you'll have a 13mm nut. Remove that one as well. Another 5.5mm screw up here. Okay. Now you can pull this down enough to get your hand in here and pull this e-brake cable through. Now I'm going to take this cable, pull it through. All right, now let's put the fender liner back. Let's reattach all the hardware that held this in place. All right, now that it's through, you can take this cable and slide it through its bracket here, press it through, make sure it's locked in. Perfect. Now I have a new one of these connectors here. If you still have the old one and it's in good condition, you can reuse it. I suggest replacing it if your parking brake cable is to the point that this one was, where it's broken. This is most likely very weak and it needs to be replaced. Okay, with it in here, I'm going to squeeze it just a little bit to make sure that it's properly clamped. Now let's go up top and I'll show you a trick on how to get this intermediate cable to come a little closer to this. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is actually position this ratcheting mechanism into place. I'm going to start in one bolt, doesn't matter which one. Okay, so I started this one. The pedal is somewhat secure now. And now I'm going to ratchet this up just like I did earlier to install the cable. Stick a pick in there, and with a pick in there, the cable is now pushed out more underneath. So let's go back down and connect it to the intermediate one. Okay, so with the cable pulled out a little bit extra, now with some locking pliers, I very, very gently grabbed this cable, and I grabbed a pair of pliers on the clamp side. I'm going to bring them together. All right, there we go. Unclamp my pliers, and this is hooked on. I am, however, going to squeeze this just a little bit, just to ensure that it has full engagement here. I don't want it popping off. All right, now with that one connected, pull out the pick. This is now going to hold tension up. And now let's install the other bolts. All right, so I actually had to unbolt this one that I put in earlier in order to line this up. Once I put this one in, I can pivot the whole assembly on here and line up the other two. All right, that's number 2. I'm going to get that as close as I can by hand. I'm going to bolt the release lever on just so that it's out of my way. And I'm left with one bolt, which was all the way back here and up, really tucked up in there. Okay, now with all of them started, I'm going to snug them up, make them nice and tight. Okay, that one's tight. Okay, nice and tight. And last one, which is the trickiest one to get to, all the way up top. For this one, I found it easiest to get to if you go over the harness, that main wiring harness that's there. All right, make that one nice and tight. All right, now let's give it a test and make sure that it works properly. That is fully depressed right there. I could probably do more if I used my leg, but release it. Everything works great. At this point, if you do need to adjust your drum brakes so that the parking brake can engage better, go ahead and do so. But as for this front cable, job is done.